through Saddleworth. We've just gone for a bit of a cruise with the one and only Stephen Domo, who's behind the wheel of the GTR Torana.
Let me put my hair back. It's all messy because we've been flying along with the windows open. Oh, but gosh, it's a beautiful car to drive. You might be able to hear that. It's beautiful. It really loves the road. Oh, I'm so blessed. Paul's let me take it out for a drive today with him. Absolutely amazing.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Oh, wow, what a car it is. It's got so much character, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely.
Like it's just like driving something from the past. Like it is a time machine. The way the speedo needles sort of have a little bit of character and fluctuate, to the way the steering feels, to the way the steering wheel's a little bit offset. It's quite an interesting and unique drive. It really is. Really is. It's definitely, Paul, I wasn't expecting it to be like this.
It's like driving a brand new old car.
It is. It really is.
Yep.
Oh, she's a beautiful, beautiful car to drive though. The things about it though, the seatbelts have this character. They don't retract, so you're stuck with the seatbelt like this, which is, it is what it is.
Which is its original setup.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Back in the first gear. The gearbox has a very unique feel to it.
Aussie 4-speed.
Yeah. It's kind of very vague, you know? You're kind of like scratching around in a bucket of rocks with a stick, it feels like, to try and get it into gear, but you get there. You just be patient with it. The clutch, sort of, on a new car, will start engaging or disengaging the clutch with about 5 to 10 mil when you put your foot on it, but with this one here, it's about halfway down before you start to really get that sort of clutch disengagement. But once you do, it's all good, and you just take your time changing gears with this, because this is my first time, so I'm definitely not used to how these boxes perform under the sort of
load.
Motorsport, load sort of environment. So we're just taking it out for a nice Monday cruise, and it's beautiful. I can't believe this. The smell. How do you describe the smell, Paul?
I think it's like sitting in an old railway carriage.
Yeah.
That's what it smells like, because you can smell the leather.
Yep.
And it's just got that enhanced smell, like you're sitting in an old railway carriage.
Yep.
But it's comfortable.
Oh yeah, it really is. The seats are very comfortable. Like the suspension's a bit firm because it's a GTR and it's just an older car. Everything feels pretty direct but vague at the same time. Here we go. We can go up to 80. And there's fourth gear. Beautiful. Top gear, straight through. 1-to-1 ratio in the fourth. And this, it's just beautiful. Just beautiful. You have an interesting sort of relationship with the steering wheel and the road with this, because it is direct feeling, but there is that sort of vague, it wants to do what it wants to do. And that's because I think the wind is buffering us around a lot today as well. It's quite a windy day outside. Beautiful day. Yeah, you get used to it, and she actually handles very nicely. It's a pleasure to drive. Now I know how every girl feels like when they have that top that's too big and the bra keeps falling off. That's exactly how I understand your problem now, women. We'll get her up to 110 and see how she goes. All right, that's leveled out there at 110 kilometers now for our Australian viewers, non-American viewers. But the note from the exhaust is, there's nothing like it, you know. The windows are down, and it's not actually that windy. Like my hand's here, and it's not feeling that windy, right? But you put your hand outside, you know about the wind. It does have a bit of wind noise, but it's actually not uncomfortable with the windows down. So that's a beautiful thing about it. With modern cars, it can get that sort of like boom, 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 boom sort of sound when the windows are down, but not this one. This one doesn't do that. I think it's also due to, in part, that it has the rear quarter vent windows that are partially open. But yeah. What do you like about it, Paul?
everything.
Everything.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
It's not like driving a new car.
No.
Like you said, it handles beautifully on the road.
Yeah.
It's very stable.
Yep.
The sound of the note coming out of the exhaust is not what you get in a new car.
Yep.
It has its own unique sound of a classic.
Yep.
And it's just a completely different experience to driving a modern day car. And the beauty is it's not uncomfortable. It's very comfortable to drive.
Yeah. I noticed the steering wheel is very skinny compared to normal cars. Like in comparison to one of my fingers there, it's about the same size as one of my fingers. So very skinny indeed for the steering wheel. So that aspect of it takes a little bit of getting used to. But Paul was telling me before, the steering wheel is the influence from the Ferrari with the checker plate. The only difference being the line there. But, speaking of that, here's how the horn sounds.
I'm glad you enjoyed driving in a classic car and having the experience of understanding what others for generations have felt like driving in these type of cars.
Yeah, it is the feel of a generation, this type of car. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful car. And to think that these is what people had, this is what everyone used to drive around in. This was the standard, the norm. This was everyone's everyday to and from commute to school and back, to the shops, to work. And now it's just something so special because you just don't get the same feel. Here we go, we come back to 80 zone so I can... Beautiful, oh, the sound of the engine, the rumble. Just gorgeous. Get to do 80 up here. Get into it. Oh, here we go. We're in fourth gear already, but we'll put the foot flat to the floor. This is from 80 to 110. It's actually got a lot of poke. It's got a lot of torque to it, you know? They don't produce huge amounts of horsepower, but they do have a lot of torque. So what's this producing? Maybe 130, 135 horsepower? Something around there? Is that right, Paul?
Oh, I would say so.
Yeah.
Yep.
His only modifications are a set of extractors and a Poly 350 carby. But it pulls beautifully. Really pulls beautifully to go up to speed. You're not going to have any problems overtaking anyone. And the 4-speed gearbox means you don't really need to change gears that often. I'm finding today's drive, we're just using third and fourth really. Like third and fourth is enough to get you through town and maybe back to second. But I'm only having to go back to first when we stop as usual, but it's mainly third and fourth, to be honest. Yeah, especially when you're down to, you know, like you can still leave it in third when you're doing 50, no problems. Put your foot down and then you get a nice pull until you change into fourth at about the sort of 80 mark. I don't know about you, Paul, but the thing that I like about the Torana is that when everyone was going bigger and better and more cubic capacity, more cubic inches at Bathurst back in the day, there was a race between Holdens and Fords, and Valiants were in there too, Chrysler, and they were sort of going bigger is better, you know, like how big can we make these things, how big a motor can we put in them, and you know, there was sort of public outcry back in the day. You'd remember that, wouldn't you?
I do. And yeah, the bigger, how much faster can we make it? But really, back in the days, they called these the pocket rockets.
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously, as a lot of people that are within the age group can remember, they were the GTR, the GTR XU1s, and later on the SLR and the SLR 5000s in the Torana range. And then you had your Fords, your XY GTs that were all racing through Bathurst back in the day of Alan Moffat and of course Peter Brock, who made these cars famous.
The great thing about these little Toranas and Holden's thinking was they did the opposite to what everyone else was doing, as you just said, you know, like everyone's trying to get the biggest engine possible, and Toranas, the LC and LJs, they went backwards. They were like, how can we make something smaller and more nimble and faster around the corners, because they couldn't keep increasing the capacity because people were up in arms and, you know, we can't have these huge horsepower cars on the road, you know, it's going to be dangerous and this and that. People were scared, really. But they took this and thought, how can we make a little 3-litre straight 6 in the LC, little 186, go faster? We'll just make it in a smaller body, make it more nimble so it can fly around the corners while everyone else is going big. Holdens went small. And they had huge success. Huge success.
They won Bathurst quite a few years in a row.
Yes. I know there was the GTR-X concept, or the GTX, which is usually housed in the National Motor Museum in Burton, which was the, I suppose, next generation of the 6-cylinder LJ, but never made it into production. That was quite a sleek car with a very different design, with a mid-mount engine and a rear transaxle. I believe there's 2 in existence. I think the second one's being restored at the moment, but that would have been really cool because they're a really futuristic looking car, bit of a TV screen in them and stuff. And
they were more like a James Bond type of car, those ones, the GTR-X.
If you don't know about that, well worth having a look at the GTR-X. Yeah, it's a white one that they've done up in colour, and yeah, well worth having a look at. Yeah, with a 186 and triple carbs. But would have been an amazing car, and I would say if they would release that, it easily would have been my favourite historic Holden, you know. I'd have one in a heartbeat for sure. Even if they'd made hundreds of thousands of them, I'd still have one. They just look like a cool car.
Oh yes, so very popular. Even with the GTR like this one, they had different designs that they were looking at. In fact, one of them even looked like it had a Monaro back, with the window that used to wrap around the whole back. But this is the concept car that they went with, and yeah, proved to be very, very popular. Very expensive back in the days to buy. Yeah. They were about $2,500, maybe $2,300 to buy. But back in those days, they were about $1,500 a year to insure. Yep. And not that I was old enough to be working in those days, but it's around about $20 a week for a pay packet. Wow. So yeah, they were very expensive to buy. Yeah. And if you were lucky enough that you could afford one, those that had bought themselves a GTR or an XU1, and later on the SL series, the SLR, the SLR 5000, and the A9X, which was based on those SLR 5000s as well. Yep.
Here we go. We've just got back from the run around World's End Highway, and look at this. I thought I'd show you guys in the engine bay. So on these Toranas, the best way to tell what it is by the sticker here. Just joking. If you actually want to know what sort of engine it's got, have a look down here on the blocks. That there says HP. So HP designates the 179 cubic inch. Only the 179s had HP written on them. So that's how you know what this is here. Usually in that spot there where the HP is written, it'll either say 186, 161, 179, 173, 138, 149, or 202. Sometimes it'll have, yeah, if it says HP, you know it's a 179 cubic inch. And if it says 3.3, you know it's a 202. So he's got extractors there, he's got pacemaker, beautiful, Holly 350. I've always found the horns to be quite interesting on these. They were always quite like a bit of a twin setup, but they were just a bit odd how they were just looking like that and placed there. In my opinion, it was always a bit more of like an afterthought. I thought Holden's may have done a better job at putting them under the front here to get more noise out to the front to the pedestrians, but they didn't for some reason. So they mount them in the engine bay, which is yeah, I think just a bit of an afterthought, to be honest. This one here uses the rat trap type setup for the clutch. So it's all the mechanical clutch, which is explaining the feeling that I'm getting before, because it's a very different type setup. But yeah, there you go.
You dirtied my car.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have to wash it.
Yeah. No, she looks good. Looks very good.